Hello everyone, I'm Sidhvita on behalf of Krino Forensics, presenting the topic Disaster Victim Identification. Let's delve into the topic how forensic science plays a vital role in identifying victims of mass disasters. In this topic, we are going to explore a brief overview of disaster victim identification and its relevance in forensic science, importance, scope, with understanding why disaster victim identification is crucial, with highlighting the methods used in the process of disaster victim identification. We also learn all the phases of disaster victim identification process and challenges or real world obstacles in disaster victim identification, along with a case study as an example to illustrate the application and impact of disaster victim identification. I will also share some of the future insights on this topic with a conclusion. Before getting into the main topic, let's understand the term disaster. Disaster. It's a word we commonly used in cases of earthquakes, tsunamis, floods, etc. In short, it is a sudden event that causes great harm which results in disruption of normal life, damage to a property, infrastructure, and the environment. It also leads to a loss of human life on a large scale. There are two types of disasters. One is natural disaster, man made disaster. Natural disasters are events caused by natural forces. Example tsunami, earthquakes, floods, etc. Man made disasters are the events resulting from human actions. Example terrorist attacks, fire accidents, etc. Based on the origin, disasters are classified into two main categories: open disaster, second one is closed disaster. Open disasters are the disaster which taken place in an open area. Example tsunami, earthquakes, floods, etc. These are challenging due to the death of numerous unknown individuals with no pre existing records. Closed disaster. Closed disasters are the events that taken place within a confined area. Example, fire accident in an organization at a workplace. Here, the organization will be having a set of details of employees who are working in the workplace. So in this way it is very easy in comparing to open disasters to find out the people who are present at the time of disaster taken place. Coming to the point, who is a victim? In general, victim is any person who suffer harm, injury, loss or death. In disaster victim identification, a victim is a deceased person from a mass disaster whose identity is unknown and must be scientifically confirmed so the remains can be returned to the family. Here comes our main topic, disaster victim identification. Disaster victim identification is a scientific and respectful process of identifying people who have died in mass disaster events. By comparing the information from the bodies with the detail provided by the families or official records or the evidence collected from the scene of crime, it helps to return the deceased to their families. The main aim of disaster victim identification is to identify the victims and return them to their families with respect. Now, let's understand why disaster victim identification is important. It is very important in mass disasters as it helps families by confirming what happened to their loved ones. It also needed for legal purposes like getting the death certificates, insurance claims, etc. Disaster victim identification ensures the bodies are treated with respect and returned properly. It helps misidentification, which causes serious problems. And finally, it protects public health by making sure remains are handled safely. So, disaster victim identification is not just about science, it's about helping people and maintaining order. The scope of disaster victim identification is wide and important. It's a team effort involving many scientific and forensic fields like pathology, odontology, anthropology, fingerprints, and DNA analysis. All these fields work together to help the victims and their families. Disaster victim identification is used in mass disasters such as plane crashes, earthquakes, terrorist attacks, and wars. It includes global teamwork. Disaster victim identification also helps in criminal and civil cases by identifying victims and supporting legal action. Finally, it's a part of training and preparedness for disaster response teams to be prepared for emergencies. In short, disaster victim identification brings science, teamwork, and global cooperation together to identify victims and help their families. Methods used in disaster victim identification. Primary identification. It refers to the most accurate and reliable method of identifying an individual, which is often based on unique biological markers that can be directly compared. Primary identification methods include DNA profiling, which helps to compare genetic material to identify individuals, dental record comparison, and fingerprint analysis. Coming to secondary identification, which involves methods that are less definitive but still provide supporting evidence for identification, such as identifying marks or devices on body, example tattoos, scars, implants, etc. Also, the items found with the disease that may indicate the identity, such as personal belongings, example ornament, clothes, etc. Matching the medical records or known surgeries. We can also consider face recognition, but it is very less reliable. Now, let's talk about the 5 phases of disaster victim identification process. Scene examination is the phase 1. In scene examination, the bodies and the belongings are recovered from the disaster site. Everything is documented and tagged carefully. The second phase is post-mortem data collection. Forensic experts examine the bodies, fingerprints, teeth, DNA, autopsy, all the evidences and give each body a unique ID. Third one is mortem data collection. Here the information is collected from families like medical, dental records, DNA samples and personal details. And the fourth phase is reconciliation. Here, the postmortem data is matched with antemortem data to confirm each victim's identity, and a final report is made out based on all the evidences found and the data analyzed. And the last one is debriefing and release. Here, the identified bodies are respectfully returned to families, and the team reviews the process to improve future responses. These phases help ensure the identification done accurately and respectfully in disaster situations. The disaster victim identification process faces several challenges that make identification difficult, like religious sensitivities. In some religions, handling the remains requires following local beliefs and customs, which can complicate this process. And decomposition and damage. Some bodies may be badly burned, decomposed, or fragmented, making it hard to identify them. Third one is lack of antemortem data. If records are like dental, medical, or fingerprint information are missing or incomplete, it can delay the identification process. Fourth one is scene management issues. Poor practices at disaster sites, such as mixing up or losing remains, can make identification more challenging. Fifth one is high number of victims. When many people are affected, local forensic teams may be overwhelmed, making it harder to identify all the victims in a timely manner. Sixth one is culture and emotional pressure. Families and the media often want quick results, putting emotional pressure on the identification to act fast. Seventh one is logistical constraints. In some areas, there may be a lack of advanced technology, equipment, or trained personnel, which can limit the effectiveness of identification process. These are some of the challenges faced during disaster victim identification process. Here comes a very interesting part of every forensic student, the case study. On May 22nd, 2010, Air India Express flight crashed while attempting to land at Mangalore International Airport, resulting the death of 158 people out of 166 on board. The victims are severely burned, making visual identification impossible. Forensic experts use DNA profiling, dental records, and fingerprints to identify the deceased. The AIMS and Central Forensic Science Laboratory teams were involved in postmortem examinations and DNA analysis. The challenges faced in this case are the bodies have suffered extensive thermal damage, making identification difficult. There was limited antemortem data for some passengers, which delaying the process. There was significant emotional pressure from families demanding quick identification. These are some of the challenges faced during the case. An outcome of the case is, despite of all these challenges, most the victims were successfully identified and the remains were handed over to their families. This case highlighted the importance of forensic preparedness, rapid response, and the need of proper passenger data maintenance to ensure quicker identification in such tragic events. Let's talk about some of the future insights of disaster victim identification. The development of faster DNA testing methods will improve identification times. Artificial intelligence and digital tools can speed up the matching process and analyze large data sets more efficiently. And development of mobile forensic labs for on-site analysis, as mobile forensic labs will allow for quicker on-site processing of remains, reducing the need of transport bodies to central facilities. Stronger international collaboration and protocols, also expansion of biometric databases like fingerprints, dental, and DNA analysis. Expanding these biometric databases will ensure more reliable and accessible data for identifying victims across borders. Also, enhancing the training and stimulation for disaster victim identification teams. The continuous training and exercise for disaster victim identification teams will improve their preparedness and response to complex identification challenges. In conclusion, disaster victim identification is a crucial process that combines science, teamwork, and compassion. It helps identifying the victims by using the techniques like DNA analysis, fingerprint analysis, and dental records. Disaster victim identification supports justice and ensure proper handling of the deceased. With ongoing improvements in technologies and global cooperation, disaster victim identification continues to play a vital role in forensic science and disaster response. I hope you enjoyed the session with me. If you have any questions, please leave a comment below. We will be happy to address them. The presentation document is shared on our social media platforms. You can easily access the document from there. For more details, you can directly contact us via email, LinkedIn, Instagram, or Telegram. Here I'm signing off. Sidhvita, a member of Krino Forensics. Thank you.